Hello everyone, Andre here, and today I'm going to be showing you a few tips to make your scores look absolutely fantastic in Sibelius Ultimate. I'm going to be taking these three methods in order of easiest to most laborious. So without further ado, let's begin. The first tip I'm going to be showing you is the Optimize feature. Now the Optimize feature is under the Layout tab, and it's right here. And basically what this does is when you click this button, Sibelius will decide what kinds of spacings it prefers for any given area. So what I've done here to show you how this works is I've taken a piece of my music and I've just purposely made it kind of a mess. So you'll see all these red marked areas. That's where Sibelius is saying that it doesn't like where it's being placed, whether there's a collision, whether there's a spacing issue, something is up and Sibelius doesn't like it. So what we're just going to do is we're going to hit this Optimize button, and you'll see a tab comes up that asks you if you meant to select nothing, and if you did, you can apply this to the entire piece of music. So for now, let's just hit yes, and let's see what happens. So right away you see what a difference it makes. The staves are slightly spread out and all of the red marks, or most of the red marks, are gone. So this is a really quick method of making things a little bit less of a mess. So if you're in a time crunch and you really need to just get things done quickly, you can go ahead and hit Optimize. Now as you see, it didn't catch everything. So you see down here we still have some red. And if this happens, you can either adjust this manually or you can select the area that's affected and go ahead and hit Optimize. And it just adjusts that one area. So it's a very handy feature to target the entire score or just one small select area. Let me see if I can find another place where perhaps Optimize will work. Aha, right here I know that Optimize probably won't work because of the way that the text is set up. So I'm going to just show you, I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to hit Optimize, and you'll notice how nothing happened. There's an issue here with magnetic layout, which is this gray text that you'll see underneath that. I'm going to tackle magnetic layout in another video because it is sort of a complicated feature. And I think if you hit this, it might not work either. Yep, so that's another issue with magnetic layout. So Optimize works very, very well 90% of the time, but of course it is not foolproof like all of the other automated features in Sibelius. You have to sort of take it with a grain of salt. You can trust it 90% of the time, but it's always best to go through and make sure. Alright, so the second tip to making your score look absolutely fantastic is the Align Staves function. So you'll find this really close to the Optimize button. So if you remember where the Optimize button is, under the Layout tab, Align Staves is just over here. So if you just click it without doing anything else, you get this. Please select a passage. So this function only works if you select something to apply it to. So for example, I'm going to select here where it says measure 11, and I'm just going to highlight these two pages. Now if you want to know how I did that quickly, basically what you're doing is you're just clicking, you're holding down shift, and then you're clicking the last area, and that highlights pretty much everything. So once you have a section highlighted, you can click this Align Staves button and you get this window. So let's just go through stuff here. So this button says lock format before making changes. This is a pretty good idea because it sort of puts things into a set place and then it doesn't get moved around. You can uncheck this, but I really prefer to keep this on. Reset positions of the staves. This is if you had altered it somehow. This will put it back to the default position. So you can leave that alone. This is where the magic happens. So what you want to do is you want to make sure this Align Staves on selected pages is highlighted. And then you're going to select which one is going to be your baseline for alignment. So let's just take, for example, I set this first page up in a way that I liked. And I wanted to align this second page with this first one. Yeah, if I move this over, you can see how they're not exactly in the same position. This piano reduction is a little further away here. This alto and tenor line is very, very spaced out. So I want it to look a little bit more like this first page. So I click this button that says align with the first selected page, which is this, and then I just hit OK. And you see two things happen. The first thing that you'll see happen is, obviously, they're now perfectly aligned. Every single line is uniform across the page. The spacing in between is exactly perfect as well. And you'll notice, if I zoom in, these little icons here. These icons, if you're not aware, are the lock format icons. So they show you that this score is now locked in place. You're going to have these three bars in this system. Here you have a page break sign. So pretty much you're set up here and you are feeling very good. Everything looks nicely. And then you'll see that there's still a few red marks here and there. So this is where maybe you can go back and hit that optimize button. And it'll adjust it ever so slightly and fix the collisions. Now you'll notice if you align first and then hit optimize, see how it doesn't quite line up perfectly anymore. So you'll just have to play it by ear and sort it out. But if you play with it a little bit, you can make things work the way you want them to pretty well. And you'll notice how the top is still lined up perfectly, this alto line is still lined up perfectly, this tenor line is still lined up perfectly. It's just where you applied the optimization that it moved a little bit. So the last method of making your score look really, really great and organized is the most laborious by far. And this involves turning on the rulers. So you'll find the rulers under the View tab. So that's the very last tab up here. You hit View. And then on the right here, you have three different kinds of rulers. You have the staff rulers, you have the object rulers, and then you have the selection rulers. So I would really recommend you turning them on one at a time, because if you turn all three on, it's just a lot of information, and it can be a little overwhelming at first. And notice how if you highlight it, it gives you a little shortcut, keyboard shortcut there that you can memorize. To be honest, I don't use these very frequently. So I don't have these quick functions memorized yet, or these hotkeys memorized. But it's very easy to find these. It's under View. So let's just dive in. Okay, I'm gonna click Staff Rulers, and immediately you'll see these numbers show up on the sides here. So this is telling you the distances between all of the different areas on a page. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit and just focus on this system here. So the first number you'll see is this 18. That's the distance between the top of this staff with the top of the page. And then down you'll see various distances. This one is the distance between this system and the left side of the page. And then you'll have the distances between the staves. Now you'll notice that we have an 18 here, an 18.7, 18.8, and then we're getting progressively smaller. So maybe you want to get these a little bit closer together, a little closer to uniform. Maybe 18 is the magic number. So let's see if we can do something about that. There's two ways of manipulating this. You can do what I usually do and click on the system, on the staff, excuse me, and just move it around with your mouse. Now, I'm not a trackpad person. I much prefer the mouse. It's a lot more precise. So there we go. I've got 18 and 18. Another way of doing things, if you perhaps don't want to have the imprecision of a trackpad or a mouse, you can hold Alt and then click the arrow keys and it will move your objects incrementally, and it's a lot more precise to do it this way. So perhaps a little bit more time consuming, but it's very, very precise. So let's go to this one. I want to move this. I'm going to use these Alt buttons. Let's see if I can get 18. Sometimes with the Alt way of doing it is that you can't quite get the exact number, but let's see if I can get it with the mouse. Pretty challenging. It might not let me. Well, 18.1 is pretty darn close to 18, I have to say. I think my eye can't distinguish the difference. And let's see if we can get 18 here. Now you notice as you move things around, I want you to take a look at these other two numbers as I move this bottom system around. See how those numbers change? So Sibelius is smart. It'll adjust as you go to help you out a little bit. So you have to notice that they're very, very close. So even if you're manipulating it ever so slightly, there's still a margin of error that I think is very reasonable. I mean, I can hardly tell the difference between these. And then just for continuity's sake, I'm going to do the same exact thing with the piano reduction. Move it away here. And so now all of these spacings are pretty much the same. I mean, between 18.1 and 17.8, there's a very, very small margin of error. So you're probably thinking, yeah, this is a very, very useful way of making things look exactly the way I want, and you're right. So let's say that you've set up this part very, very nicely. You can go ahead and highlight this. I should probably do the same here. Let me do the same here while we're talking about alignment. So you'll notice that this does take a bit of time. So if you're in a rush, if you're trying to get things done quickly, I wouldn't recommend this method. But if you have the time to spare, definitely worth it. I'm just going to move this down because it's clipping slightly. So I have basically 18, 18, 17.8, 17.9, 17.8, 17.6. It's not exactly 18, but it's really, really close. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select, as we did before, from that measure to this measure. And I'm going to go ahead and click Align Staves. I don't know, the program's freaking out. I'm going to click Align Staves. And I'm going to make sure to lock the format because I really like this first page. I'm going to click the first selected page and Align Staves and OK. Bam. We have perfectly aligned systems and staves. Now, of course, you'll see this collision right here, so you're probably going to have to sort that out a little bit. But the point is, you have sheer perfection, and you can then sort things out as you go. So, again, an issue with magnetic layout that we'll cover in another video. So there you have it, folks. 3 ways of making your score look very, very good, perfectly aligned. And I hope this helps you with your workflow. I hope this helps you make your scores look really, really well presentable. And I look forward to the next video. If you enjoyed this, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time.